Hello and welcome to another edition of the Leaders and Legends podcast. Today we have the pleasure in interviewing Corporal Amy Kowski. Amy joined the Army in 2009 as a caterer, where she served with 9 FSB, 17 Construction Squadron and SOLs. In 2015, she corps transferred to be a psych assistant, where she served with MHPS Southern and Central New South Wales. In 2020, her trade was made redundant, and she is currently now studying a Bachelor of Education secondary with the hope of becoming an education officer in the not too distant future. Amy has also represented Army in AFL for the last 12 years in 7 carnivals. Today we will be discussing Amy's career, including her pathway to becoming an officer and her involvement in women's sport in the Army. Amy, welcome to the Cove and thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to the opportunity to explain my pathway, including women's sport.
All right, Amy, let's start by asking why you joined the Army.
Good question. So I think when I was in year 12, my dad suggested that I join the Army and do a gap year. At the time, I laughed at him and thought, there's no chance of me joining the Army. Couldn't think of anything worse than being wet and dirty and whatnot. So he sort of dropped that and let it go. And then I thought I did have some time to myself throughout year 12 and I applied. Would have been like mid-year 12. And then in January 2009, that following year, I was in the Army. And yeah, so a gap year and still in now. So 15 years on, I guess the gap year program worked for me. But yeah, that's why I joined.
And so that was the official Army gap year program that you joined?
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Oh, great. Been successful. And did you want to join as a caterer or was that all they had to offer at the time?
Well, because it was a gap year, they didn't offer all that many different options. They offered, the shorter IET sort of courses. So
right.
Clark, QE, catering. And I guess the DFR really sold being a steward or operator catering. So they told me I'd work in a bar and I'd get to play sport. So that's why I chose catering.
Did you enjoy it?
It had its ups and downs. I definitely didn't just work in a bar. I definitely worked more in a kitchen and I don't even know really what I did, a lot of stock taking and whatnot. But yeah, I did enjoy it. Looking back, I learned a lot and I learned a lot about myself. So I guess there was some positives in that.
Great. So then in 2015, you transferred to be a psych assistant. What was the motivation for this?
Well, funny that you spoke about me being redundant from psych examiner. I was also redundant from being a steward as well. So I've had two redundancies in my career. So I'm kicking goals I don't know how you look at it, but.
Yeah. So, okay. All right. So you joined as a caterer and that collapsed on you. You then become a psych assistant and that was made redundant. What are you doing now? And what is Army doing to assist you with your future career?
So I'm currently studying the Bachelor of Education secondary at the moment. So that's through ACU, or Australian Catholic University at Strathfield. The Army is supporting me. I've got a really good chain of command at work who are allowing me time to go study. So I am doing that through DAS. So very, very helpful. I'm sort of doing full-time work, full-time study, which is pretty busy. But I guess that if you do have good chain of command and you sort of organise it, it can be done. So yeah, that's how I guess work is supporting me to transition out. So the intent is to go long-term schooling and then become an educational officer.
Great. And I'll throw a different question in there. How is DAS helping you with your study?
So that's allowing me to. So with DAS, you put in your application. It gets approved by your chain of command. So with what courses or what subjects you've chosen, and that sort of works. Then you can work out how much time off work you can get. Do you need time off work when your exams are and stuff like that, as well as a financial support. So originally I didn't get financial support, and I just put it through HEX. So I was just paying it off at tax time. But yeah, now that they've changed all the process and the funding, I'm actually entitled to fully paid. So it still goes through HEX, but at the end of my, I guess, when I've completed my subjects, I then show DAS or the education scheme that I've successfully passed my subjects, as well as a tax sort of printout to show that I've paid. And then I just get fully reimbursed. So it's actually a really, really good system. I highly recommend it for anyone that is looking at studying.
Great. And how is the study going, and how do you feel it has helped your professional development to date?
Studying's going well. As I said, it is pretty busy. I don't really have much of a social life. So it's between work, study, and training. I guess I am pretty busy, but I am enjoying studying. I think that defence really set you up for study. As much as I didn't expect, or when I went into uni to start with, I was expecting myself to be really struggling. But I wrote my first essay and I sent it to my brother, who's actually a teacher as well. And he was like, "Oh, you're actually smart." I didn't think. So it was a little bit funny. I thought, yeah, when he said that, and then I sort of sat there and thought, well, how did I get here? And what does he mean by that? And I think it's just the way that Army teach you through promotion courses how to write and how to structure sentences and how to actually write a proper essay sort of format, which has really set me up for uni. So in terms of professional development, I think it's taking accountability for what you're doing with yourself professionally and in your personal life. I think that's probably where I've learned the most. Sort of time management, and now I've started it. I've got to get through it, and having that like motivation to get there.
Okay, so a lot, we've touched on it just previously, but a lot of people I speak to tell me that they just don't have time to conduct extra education. How do you find the time, and how does Army support you with this?
Prioritize. Well, yeah, you've really got to prioritize your time management and your time, what's important to you, or what used to be important to me, what I used to enjoy. I no longer have that time. I guess that, so any social or birthdays or something like that, it's not that I miss out, but I've got to prioritize what's important. If that friend's birthday isn't as, it sounds really bad when I say it like that, but if that friend isn't like someone really close to me, then that's something that I will generally, if I've got something due, that I'll have to manage, whether I go for an hour or so. Yeah, so it's that time management and prioritizing what you need to do to get things done, and that goes for work as well as study.
And you mentioned before that 2 days a week Army lets you go off and do your uni courses. How much of your own time do you think you spend a week on this study?
Well, I'm pretty slow at writing, and it takes me a long time. I think I always get like what they call writer's block, where I just sit there and stare at the screen. So it probably takes me a lot longer than what it really should. But I probably spend, so 2 days a week I'm at uni actually going to tutorials, and then I probably spend maybe an hour or two most nights, depending on how fatigued I am when I get home from work or how long I've been in front of the screen. I really tried to limit that screen time over night time. But yeah, over the weekend, it's probably 3 to 4 hours either Saturday or Sunday. But I mean, you've got to, once again, that prioritization comes into it. If I don't have something due, I'll get out and enjoy my weekend. I won't sit there and study or read things just because I have to. It will only really be around that assessment or those assignments when they're due.
Fantastic. And how important do you think the professional development of our people is, and what advice would you give to anyone thinking about conducting further study?
Well, I highly recommend, whilst you're in the defence, to go do something to get a degree somehow, or whatever you're thinking about doing, just do it. The quicker you start, the quicker you'll get it done, even if you're doing 1 to 2 subjects a semester. I think that being redundant twice in defence, I've sort of really had to take a step back and think about what I wanted to do with my future and my career, but not just whilst I was in Army, but for future, if I was to get out of defence. Yeah, so I think it's really, really important that you do learn those sort of skills certain skills in Army, but also learning that, I don't know, it's something so rewarding. It's personally rewarding to get through. I mean, I'm only halfway through my degree, but to get something done and start achieving something like that. Yeah. So I highly recommend to anyone that's in the defence to look at studying.
And your own study, I see on the news a lot now that the teachers are starting to get a lot more pay. So as you mentioned before, if anything happens in defence, you can always drop back to that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, it's not really I'm not really looking at transitioning out of defence yet. But yeah, it is definitely something that I did consider when I started looking at studying and what career options I had. Yeah, so I didn't want to just go down like that normal, I guess,
Yep.
the strategic sort of business plan that UNSW or ADFA offer. So yeah, that sort of weighed up what I wanted to do whilst I was in army, as well as if I was to get out. And yeah, that's definitely something that I can fall back on if I ever want to. However, high school students at the moment, when I'm at uni doing my placements and stuff, it's a bit interesting.
So you're working towards becoming an education officer. Can you advise on this process? I mean, I know you're probably only very early into it, but yeah, if any advice you can give on this process, and when are you aiming to be commissioned?
Yeah, so with the commissioning process, so it's educational officers are SSO, so the special serving officer, not your general GSO, your general serving officer. So there is a little bit of a difference between the two. Obviously, SSO they do an 8-week SSO course where your GSOs go to RMC. So the process for SSOs, you have to have done completed 8 subjects in your chosen career or chosen degree. So once you have done your 8 subjects, then you can apply, and then you go through the selection board. So you go through your psych, and if you get recommended from psych, then you go through your SSO board. So I'm currently waiting for my SSO board, which will be in October. So from there, I have to get recommended from the selection board, and then I'll commission hopefully at the end of the year. But it just depends on what they offer. If they're going to allow me to go for long-term schooling for 2 years, as it's sort of, they recommend only the 1 year. But given my circumstances with not really having a job or not having a job when at a core, I'm hoping that they do pick me up for the full term or for the remainder of my sub course.
Well, good luck with that. What is your long-term plan for your career? Do you intend on staying in army for as long as possible, or is being a high school teacher something that interests you in the future?
Yeah, I do. I plan to stay in for as long as I can. I don't really see myself getting out anytime soon, but I guess that as things do start to change in my life, I'll have to start looking at prioritizing where I want to be. Do I want family, those sort of things? But yeah, I mean, I'm still very happy in the army, and I don't see myself leaving anytime soon. But yeah, so over the next 5 years, I have no real idea what to expect. I think get my study done, and then post wherever the army want me to post, and go from there.
Well, I think you're definitely on the right track. Let's now start talking about a bit of army sport, in particular AFL. How long you've been playing AFL, and what was your motivation to play?
So I think I started playing AFL in 2011. So it would have been my first Army AFL carnival as well. I grew up in country Victoria, so sport or AFL was definitely something that was around me all the time. So I played netball with a local football club, so I could go watch the football. So I wasn't really, that's the reason why I wanted to go to the football. That's the reason why I played netball, so I could go watch the football. But back then when I was, 16 or 14, 15, 16, there wasn't really much women's sport around other than netball, basketball. So I did play netball and I did play basketball, but AFL was definitely something that, it was my passion. Yeah, so when I moved to Sydney, I think it was the following year, I started playing, and I've loved it ever since.
Fantastic. So you've done 7 carnivals with
Yep.
the Army AFL team. How do you go about being selected to get on the Army AFL team?
Well, back in 2011, it was actually a bit more of an easier process. It sort of was not what you knew, it was who you knew. So it was just sort of that I ran into someone that played, and I saw her T-shirt, and I was like, oh, Army AFL, I didn't know there was a team. And she was like, oh, you should play. It's in 2 weeks in Melbourne. Do you want to come? And I was like, yeah, sweet. That sounds great. And that's sort of how it happened from there. And I think once you're in the program, then they've sort of got your name and your contacts, and it's a lot easier to get in the programs because you're on the emailing list. But now it's a little bit harder. There is a fitness aspect and testing and programming that we have to follow leading into the carnival. And that's how they make their selection. So they've got brigade football, or they call it regional football now. So Darwin have a team, North Queensland have a team, South Queensland have a team. There's no Sydney or Canberra or Melbourne region, which is a bit disappointing. Hopefully that changes soon. But yeah, so you go to brigade football into regional football, and then from there you sort of get on that. That's how you get on the mailing list, and you follow the programs, and you send through your times for your 2K time trials and your 5K time trials. And the coach was actually really good, Cliffo. So he came around and watched a few of the local games. So he would fly up to Darwin and watch some local games and see the local girls up there, and go to Townsville and Brisbane. I think he did come and watch one of my games in Sydney. But yeah, so that's the sort of the selection process, and then it obviously all changes coming closer to the carnival, just given what goes on, what units are away, what units or who can be released. So yeah, that's how you get selected.
What's it like to represent your service?
It's actually it's amazing. It's an amazing feeling. I put it on my uniform and I'm proud every day, but then to go out and then represent Army playing football, it's such a unique feeling when you're down there, because you get treated down there, or when you're at the carnival like a professional athlete. So you do, monitor what you're eating and stuff like that. And there's generally not much alcohol or drinking. So it's very like training specific. So we go through training drills, and then we'll have like education in the afternoon where we go through like might be match footage or video footage from training sessions. So you actually learn a lot whilst you're there. It's not just like a get away and have a piss trip. So yeah, it's actually really, really rewarding. And then the bonds, the friendships you make down there is something I can't really describe. Like I've got friends from my very first carnival that I'm still friends with, and will happily ring if I ever need anything. Yeah, so yeah, it's just an amazing experience every year. It's great.
So what advice would you give young women in defence who are interested in playing Army sports? And in particular, how can they get involved?
I would suggest any sport you can get involved in. If it's volleyball, if it's cricket, if it's, I don't even know what sports there are out there, surfing, if any sport you can get involved in Army, just go do it, because it's not just about, it's not just about the sport itself. It's the connections you make that are so valuable for your career that, it's definitely highly recommend any sport that you're involved in, just seeing if it's out there in defence.
Great. And I understand Army has been quite dominant in women's AFL over the last few years. I think this year you claimed, is it the Jeff Ledger Cup for the 11th year in a row? What a fantastic achievement.
Yeah, so I think my very first carnival, and I actually didn't get to play because I was selected to go to the carnival, but I didn't get picked for the game. So that was the last year we lost. So I feel like ever since then we've been so successful. But we have been very successful to the point where both Navy and Air Force are sort of trying to keep up with our program and
replicate what you're doing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's fantastic. What position do you normally play when you're running on?
Well, I was forever played in the midfield, but for some reason I've found myself in the back line. And I did enjoy the back line. I enjoyed, the back flank, running off and getting a bit of run every now and then. But I don't know how, but this year at Army football and then also at my local civilian club, I've found myself playing full back. And I don't know, like obviously we're on a podcast, but I'm pretty short. So I don't know how I've ended up in full back playing on girls that are generally 1.5 foot taller than me. But yeah, I managed. So yeah, currently my position is full back. However, I am known to try to sneak out of full back and push further up the ground.
Well, for our listeners out there, they can, if they want to jump on Defence Images, there's quite a few photos of the AFL team in this year's carnival, and there's a couple of you, Amy, so they can jump in and have a look. How long do you continue playing? Would coaching or managing interest you in the future?
Yeah, I'm getting on with my age now. Thanks for that. Thanks for the reminder. I don't really know how long I'll keep going for, I guess, until my body starts to shut down. But after every game, I'm like, I'm too old for this. Like, why am I doing this? My body hurts. But I guess that as I recover and I get back out there and do it again. So yeah, I don't really see myself retiring anytime soon. Yeah, unless there's sort of major injuries or, I don't know, have babies or something like that. I can't see myself retiring anytime soon. That's for sure.
Well, if you're interested, you can always. We interviewed a couple of weeks ago Warrant Officer James DeBono, who's done a lot
Yeah.
of work with the AFL secondment, so he could probably help you out with some coaching or managing tips.
Yeah, definitely. I know Bones pretty well from all the carnivals, so I definitely will be reaching out to him when I do start to look at that managing or coaching sort of roles. Definitely.
Great. Look, I've got one more question for you, Amy, but is there anything you want asked? Is there anything you want to touch on? All
But
right.
yeah, just highly recommend. I guess just doing stuff that, like, don't procrastinate. If you're going to do something, if you're thinking about doing it, whether it's playing sport, whether it's studying, whether it's, I don't know, doing whatever you want with your life, just get out there and do it. The longer you procrastinate, the more likely you're not going to do it. Or when you do it, you'll find yourself going, why didn't I do this 5 years ago? So whether it be any sport or study, just go do it. Chase those dreams.
Well, Amy, that just about wraps it up. But before we go, I know you love the Cove and you're an avid reader of our articles. What is your favourite article to date and why?
Yeah, I do. I love getting on there and checking out what's out there and about. But I love seeing articles written from other junior NCOs. Like, I love seeing what they're up to and reading what they have to say. But yeah, so I do enjoy, I guess, seeing other things from other junior NCOs around. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Does that sum it up?
That's great. Yeah, no, that's good. So, all right then, Amy, thanks so much for spending time with the Cove today, and congratulations on such a fantastic career to date, and all the best with your future education and commissioning. To the listeners, thanks again for joining us on the Cove podcast. Make sure you keep an eye out for more podcasts in the future, and don't forget to download the Cove app. It's PME in your pocket, anywhere, anytime.